Welcome once again to the Epicenter, an in-depth series of podcast where we feature business leaders who are shaping today's digital economy. Today in front of me is someone who requires very little introduction, if any at all, Martin Lindstrom. Hi, Martin.
Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome to Epicenter.
Thank you.
And we're filming live right here in Bangkok.
Fantastic.
At the beautiful Mandarin Oriental.
It couldn't be more unique.
Where you have just delivered probably the most thought-provoking, mind-bending keynote session that I've heard.
Oh, thank you.
And I've heard feedback already from people. And this is actually the second time I've heard you speak. And I find myself just sitting on the edge of my chair, trying to grasp everything that you're saying.
You are very kind. Are you sitting on the edge of the chair so you can run out as fast as possible?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I was nervous there for a second.
Where did this come from? This ability to be such an engaging and thought-stimulating speaker and thought leader?
Well, I think that Winston Churchill once was quoted saying, "I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time." I think when you are performing on a stage, you are performing, and that contains multiple ingredients. One of them is that you need to have something to say, something on your heart, and it can't just be a copy-paste of what the world is also talking about, but hopefully something unique. Second, you have to deliver it in an engaging way where the audience feel that they are part of it rather than observing it.
Like me.
Well, yeah, thank you. And third, I think you need to establish a narrative which is constantly challenging people's conventional mindset by presenting counterintuitive conclusions. And if you're able to mix those three together, you may tick the box of being an entertaining speaker. As I tend to say, my biggest competitor today is a smartphone. And it is because people are constantly tricked to look at this device also when I'm on stage. So I always say, listen, if you could video record my preference or my performance on stage and watch it at home and it's the same, I've failed. Hopefully you would say to yourself, you know what, I wanted to be in that audience. I wanted to experience it like a concert. Now, am I there yet? No. But as Malcolm Gladwell once said, it takes 10,000 hours before you are a true pro. And I've been speaking at least 4,000 times. Each speech has been at least between 1 and 3 hours. So I'm probably there. And I think that means that you're not concerned about how you say it and what you say and all that stuff. You're dancing. And when you dance, it becomes something more than just a delivery of a message.
And it's so eloquent the way that you do deliver this message. And like, where did this come from? This as a young child or young teenager, did you have a passion for, because you've taken two very unique skills, or maybe there's more, but one is your ability to deliver amazing content. But you have to first have the amazing content and the mind kind of bending and creating these different growth mindset principles that you do. How did this evolve over your career?
Well, listen, I'm crazy. When I was a kid, I always had the philosophy that whenever I would get an opportunity to speak, even though I was introvert, I always spoke. So at my parents' birthday party, anniversary parties, Christmas, New Year's, whatever occasion, I would be the first to stand up and speak. And people quite often were kind of laughing about it because why would this kid always speak? Is it something his parents have forced him to do? No, it was actually myself doing it, even though I was introvert. Later on, what happened was which is a fun story. When I was 12, I was a huge fan of Lego. And I decided to build up a Legoland in the backyard of my mom and dad's garden. And it was something that took about a year to construct. And then I finally opened the gates to this theme park of mine, and only two people showed up, my mom and my dad, which really was the lowest point of my career.
Did they pay to come?
They paid $1 each, yeah. So it was really not a commercial business success, I have to say. So I went into panic. I went down to a local print office, persuaded the printer to sponsor me. And 2 days later, I had an ad in the paper, and 131 passengers showed up. There's just one problem. Visitor number 130 and visitor number 131 were the lawyers from Lego suing me. They said it was their brand, and I said, "What's a brand?" I bought the boxes myself. And the owner of Lego heard about this story, and later on gave me a job at Lego as the youngest kid in history of the Lego company. And then I immediately thereafter opened up my own advertising agency when I was, I think, 13, which I sold to BBDO, an advertising agency group, later on when I was 18. And the story really is that I began acting as an adult at a very young age. So when I joined people at the age of 25, I kind of already had 15 years on my back, and they were new in the game. And that really helped me to be, I wouldn't say a step ahead, but certainly be able to simulate a step ahead all the time. And that, I guess, is the same when it comes to speaking, that I began very young. And we're exposed to so much stuff way before most people that the basics really very quickly was not occupying my mind. I could really concentrate about what matters rather than learning the basics. So long-winded story to say, it probably comes down to the 10,000 hours.
The 10,000 hours that you've spent on delivering content. But you're more than, I mean, you are a business transformation, I guess, expert, if you will, because you've probably invested 10,000 hours into that as well.
Well, if we start to add up all those 10,000 hours, I'm probably 180 years old. So I'm careful about giving you too much here, because maybe I end up lying here. But yeah, I do. Everything is really transformation if you provoke or if you disrupt things. So transformation has always been part of my life, whether that has been to help turn around Maersk or Lego or Burger King or whatever company it is, or whether it's been to transform a celebrity like Tara Banks or a country like Switzerland or Australia. So transformation for me has been, it has multiple facets. It all comes down to branding and culture, and it all comes down to seeing it through a different lens and establishing a new reputation. So it's all one of the same, you could say. And under that umbrella, for sure, you can tick the 10,000 hours box.
And I mean, how is it that you can walk into these companies, well-established companies that have been around for tens of years, like Lego, like Maersk, and be able to see from a perspective that they can't see? Is it because you come in with an empty mind, per se, that you have no bias or no preconceptions that they've all adopted? How is it that you can come and help to identify things that they can't see right in front of their nose?
I think it comes down to the fact that I have two ages like everyone else have. I'm 53 years of age, and my twin age, my inner age, is between 12 and 16. So when I see the world, when I see a company or an organization, I see it through the kids' eyes, with all these naive questions attached to it. I don't understand what they're saying. I don't understand that website. What do they mean? What does that acronym stand for? And I think a lot of people in our world today are petrified of admitting that there's a lot of things we don't understand anymore. We don't understand those letters and that term and that phrase. So we pretend like. There's a lot of pretending. We pretend like we read the whole book. We pretend like we read that article. We actually watched that thing. But I'm actually just taking on the naive hat and asking those stupid, dumb questions, which quite often is representing the average consumer in a situation where he or she is buying something and it just doesn't add up or make sense. Now, if you can maintain that while also adding a flip to the coin, which is the strategic dimensions to it. So say, this is how the customer, the consumer sees your world. On the other hand, these are the strategic challenges you have in order to get there. Let's navigate around that. Let's navigate around your immune system, your defense mechanism for change. Well, then you're on one hand helping to guide the company while also helping to navigate it around these obstacles and hoops and loops, which quite often is paralyzing companies for evolving and transforming themselves. So I think it's a naive view of the world, while of course an aggregated experience, having worked in almost every single category in the world, a lot. And then I would say the third thing is probably that I steal a lot. I steal from one industry to another because I fundamentally don't believe that you can get ahead of the leader if you follow his tracks in the snow or in the sand. You need to follow someone else. Your benchmark has to be out of your industry, not within your industry. Because industries are emerging to the degree it is right now. So based on the fact that I worked in all these crazy industries over the years, I basically just shuffle these cards around. And do you know what? Quite often, actually, that provocative statement from a completely different industry could actually, and quite often is, the answer to a company struggling to survive with our times.
It's interesting how, and just what you're saying, when I hear you speak about an example, for example, with Maersk, right? These Maersk have to put their business into the shoes of being Uber, right? And now, all of a sudden, they understand the consumer perspective where previously they haven't done that. And this is so interesting how I see that you've done this time and time again with companies. And it's, how do you kind of figure out which one is the perspective that they need to see, and how do you overcome the resistance that these companies, because I'm sure like the first thing they say is like, who is this guy? Get him, throw him out of the room.
Absolutely. The first step is to understand the outer balances in the world, that world which happen to be paying the salaries for those people employed in that company, customers, passengers, employees, guests, whatever industry you operate in. And what I'm always looking for is the outer balances. We're all out of balance. I'll tell you a story. When I was younger, I bought a Rolex watch. Not only a Rolex watch, but a gold Rolex watch. And I had a meeting with a gentleman at Nestle in Vevey in Switzerland, and the guy came up to me and he said, "Is that a gold Rolex watch?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I would never thought that about you." And I didn't know if he was kidding or not, but my self-confidence went pretty low. So I went down to Bahnhofstrasse in Zurich to a second-hand dealer, handed in my watch, and he said to me, "You're aware of it's a gold Rolex watch?" I said, "Yeah, I know it's a gold Rolex watch." And he said, "And only people from Middle East and women are wearing these watches. It's a woman's watch you have." And it was just so ironic that I later on realized the reason why I bought the watch was not because it's always on time, because Rolex is never on time. It was because I said to the world, yes, I made it. So obviously I was insecure. I was insecure when I bought that watch. I didn't know that. I realized that 10 years later. Got rid of the watch. But what's really interesting was that we all have outer balances. Maybe I feel I have no friends. Maybe I feel I am too overweight. Maybe I feel I have a midlife crisis and I'll buy a Harley Davidson. I mean, all these different factors of outer balances is defining who we are and who we are not. That is what we call the universal insight you need to pick up from a customer or consumer. And once you pick that up and put that mirror in front of the employees and ask them, what do you really think your customers are coming here for, besides just buying something to stop their hunger or their thirst or whatever it is. And once they realize that out of balance, it's like you have an aha moment. And that aha moment becomes the foundational starting point to turn around organizations, because what happens is that the folks within the organization suddenly are not seeing the world from inside out. They're not seeing it with their own personal agendas of getting higher in the hierarchy or making sure that person will be kicked out or God knows what of the bureaucracy today ruling the companies. Suddenly they realize it's the customer would have to be my focus rather than Peter down the hallway. And as that happens, the organization is starting to see the world from outside in. That is then in return helping the company to be more focused. And then what I do is always to break this down to small bite-sized steps. Henry Ford once said that nothing is too difficult if you break it down to smaller steps.
Right.
Well, those smaller steps is what I call 90-day interventions, short, bite-sized proof points which are solving an out-of-balance issue in the customer or consumer's mind. Why 90 days? Because the quarterly announcement going on from the listed companies is 90 days. We don't have more patience in our world. So if you can prove something in 90 days, it creates a movement internally. People start to believe in the fact that change is actually possible. And if you can spread that word internally and celebrate that change mindset, you'll have more and more people buy into that movement. And suddenly it's a mind shift change. It's a culture initiative rather than anything else. Because in the end of the day, the strength of the company is not necessarily the logo on the front elevation. It's the people. It's called a corporation. We cooperate. We work together. We don't really do that anymore. But we once did. If we start to cooperate more, that's where we become a powerhouse. That's the reason why human are as we are today. We managed to cooperate in the past to build a world. So it's all about movements. It's all about culture.
You just, a few moments ago, you mentioned about the customer. And do you feel that companies have lost sight of their customer and paid more attention to the KPI of what that they're trying to achieve?
Absolutely. And but not only that, the KPIs. Because there is multiple levels and layers of KPIs in organizations. Let me go back to Maersk for a second. I was in Shanghai at the call center at Maersk. We had to look into customer experience. And I sat there with an interpreter listening into all these incoming calls. I was talking with the complaint call center. 3,000 people sitting there lined up, handling complaints. I mean, Maersk is one of the biggest companies in the world, so of course they have a lot of complaints as well.
Sure.
So there I was sitting, noting down, and I noticed something really unusual. I noticed that every single complaint was addressed with a little tick in a form categorizing this as force majeure. Now, just remind you, force majeure, it's COVID-19, it's an earthquake, it's something dramatic, a tsunami, but not every single complaint out of 1,000 of complaints every day, really? So we went back to the drawing board and I started to understand, why did these people in the call center tick that box? Very simple. The KPI, the key performance indicator for the customer service department was time. The quicker you can answer the call, the better. And if you tick one box saying force majeure, you only had to fill out one form. If you didn't, you had to fill out 4 forms. So the KPIs were in contrast with what actually the objectives were. Now, even worse, then you could go to operations, then you could go to global shared services, then you could go to HR, and each of them had different formats of KPIs. None of them were aligned. All of them looking at different aspects of the organization. How can you create a corporation where people cooperate when what they cooperate around is different types of objectives? You can't. So what happens with companies is that they have not just different KPIs for different departments, which is horrible and not the way to run organizations. They also quite often do not have the guts or the courage to shave down those KPIs to just a handful, which you and I can remember. I've been in an organization where they've had between 80 and 90 KPIs. One of them was customer satisfaction, which were allocated 1.5%. 1.5% out of a year is about 4 days or 5 days we could be customer focused, and then I assume that like 300 and something days we're not customer focused. So KPIs has become a management tool to tick boxes in theory, but remove yourself from the customer in reality.
Remove yourself from the responsibility of the customer. And I think a lot of companies have forgot why they exist, right? We're not, like you said, I'm stealing it from you. We're not business to business. We're customer to customer, or more importantly, human to human.
Yeah, we are. And the human side now more than ever is extraordinarily important. Think about the fact that we do not look each other in the eyes anymore. We look at the lens. We don't see each other's body language. In fact, if I was to take something in front of your eyes right now, or just try it at home in your living room as you're listening to this, you just look away while you're talking to a person. The person will within 30 seconds seek you somewhere in the room to make sure that you look at each other in the eyes, or at least abuse you. But when you sit on a Zoom call or a Teams call and your arms are cut off and your small gesticulations are cut off, knowing that 65% of our language is our body language, you probably only see 25%. That means that we're communicating with a huge handicap of 75%. That human dimension is where we align our thoughts at an emotional level. That's the coffee break moment. That's the water cooler moment. That's the canteen moment. That's where I come up with a crazy idea. And I know it's crazy. And I'm saying it. And I'm looking at you in the eyes. And I can feel you're okay with that idea. So I continue. Well, I may even pause and think and reflect about things. Now, as soon as you pause, on a Teams call, after 3 seconds, people say, Martin, you're on mute. We can't even think anymore. So the human dimension is disappearing. So those companies which are doing the opposite, which really are taking the human dimension into account, remember, we're all out of balance. The more we are sick and tired of going through a menu of 5 levels in a phone service call center interaction, and you're trying to search for anything online and you can't find any information because they want to avoid any trick to talk to you, all that stuff, the more you are desperate for human interaction. And when you look at the latest statistics from the United States, it's very clear today that the number one thing customers want is a human on the other side. That's it. It's super simple, right? So what I'm saying is we need to be human, and this is a human-to-human interaction rather than B2B or B2C. And if you can wave that into every touch point you operate with, do you know what? You're standing apart today.
What companies do you think are doing that really well?
Well, I will give you one example which is close to my heart. We talked about Lego previously. So I'll give you an example. This is a true case with John. John is a 8-year-old boy. He loves Star Wars. Or he loved Star Wars. And it was his 8th-year birthday. And John received this Star Wars kit, the latest and greatest from the movie. He was so excited. And he started to build this whole set. And then what happened was a disaster. One brick was missing. So this rocket could just not take off. It was like Mom and Dad were so excited, they thought, just forget about that brick. No. John did not want to launch the rocket. The whole party was a fiasco. Now, I want to pause here for a second. That brick was missing, and this is a question for you. How many complaints do you think Lego receive every year from missing bricks, from parents writing physical letters, sending it to Lego's headquarters?
Whew. I'm going to guess thousands because they probably sell millions and millions of boxes of Lego.
3 million.
3 million complaints.
Written complaints. Now, I've been to the Lego factory multiple times, and the way they manage this is that every box goes on a scale, and if it's off the scale, it will basically go back into the assembly line. There is literally not a single box coming out of that assembly line was wrong. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 million complaints about Lego missing the boat, yet it's the parents missing the boat. Now, here's my question to you. What will you do if you're head of Lego?
It's a good question. It's either you need to give a couple pieces more in order to make sure that you account for any loss, or probably change the way that you are calibrating your scales.
Or a third one.
Yeah.
Meet Hannah Quayle.
Meet Hannah Quayle.
Hannah Quayle is responsible for Lego's tone of voice. That's her only role. Mm-hmm. So Hannah has written multiple letters, and I'm going to just paraphrase one letter which literally was sent to John. Dear John, I hope you're having a bricktastic day. I'm so sorry that the Cantinellina from the Star Wars warship could not take off on your birthday. Mm-hmm. This is a disaster. Rest assured, I've called Han, and Han is right now doing a special investigation to find that brick. Now, the good news is they found it. And I've included it to you. And I just want to let you know that these disasters sometimes happen for the good ones so they can learn how to be better. I apologize, of course. So does Han. But you're ready for takeoff. Best regards, Lego.
Signed, Empathy.
Signed, Empathy. This is how 3,000 different letters are looking like and sounding like every year, including free bricks from Lego. I'm right now telling you about it. That's free advertising.
Wow. That's very, very empathetic.
It is. And it's a different way of customer service, which I think also was the reason why Zappos took off, later on acquired by Amazon. There's certain companies which are doing that stuff. Patagonia, which is going one step further, which may not be conventional business thinking in the moment, according to those KPIs, but in the long run, it's creating a very sustainable brand.
So you talk a lot about human, but let's talk a lot or a little bit about what may not be so human, AI. What are your thoughts on the good that is going to come out from AI and what makes you hopeful? And of course, the other side of the equation, the bad or the stuff that makes you stay up at night about what AI can do to businesses and to, society in general.
I think there's multiple pockets of answers depending on what lens you're seeing AI from.
From the Martin lens.
The Martin lens also have different lenses, but I'll give you a couple of them. The biggest downfall of us as a human species is that we are fundamentally lazy. And laziness was the reason why the wheel was invented. But laziness is also the reason why we don't remember anymore. Think about it. If you and I are sitting together now as we are, and now we talk about JF Kennedy, I'm saying to you, that F in JF Kennedy, what does it stand for?
Fitzgerald.
So unless you would have been as clever as you, most people would have grabbed their phone, scrolled away, and it's Fitzgerald, right? After 10 seconds looking like a hero. We did a brain scanning session where we scanned people's brains using fMRI. Mm-hmm. And whenever we asked them tricky questions, guess what? The answer consistently went to an area which we today is naming the Google spot. It's literally a spot where people have no memory. It's basically saying, go and do an action. So we're not doing short-term memory encoding anymore. Most people can't remember the phone numbers to their loved ones anymore. They remember the past, but not today. ChatGPT is infusing itself into the very core of laziness, which means that we increasingly will delete short-term memory encoding. and rely on an external factor. Point one. Point two, ChatGPT is also representing a language which comes across as being extraordinary human, which have two dimensions to it. The first one is that language is the foundation for society. If I remove a language, society collapses. It's also the foundation for religions. If I remove a language and religions, there is no religion. But if that language is manipulated through millions and billions of data points, which is obtained through the voice of the whole planet, quite often a little bit out of balance in most cases, the language is slowly seducing us to believe what we're learning is true because it's so manipulative in the way it comes across that we may be skeptical at first. We test it out. Yeah, there's a couple of mistakes. And you know what? Because we're lazy, we lean up against it. That means we're baking in a slight deviation from where we stand on our ethical code into our ways of seeing the world, which is issue number two. And issue number three is that we increasingly teach ourselves through Alexa, AI-driven, through Siri, AI-driven, and through ChatGPT 4 and other versions. We are giving instructions which are demands. I've interviewed small kids which, when they give instructions to Alexa, would not say, "Can you please tell me what the weather is?" It is, "Alexa, weather." And then when I took them away from that context and said, for fun, in a group of like-minded kids, "Can you just ask your friend here what the weather is going to be?" The person would say, "Peter, weather." So the whole empathy dimension is slowly disappearing. So what I'm saying on the ugly side here is, it is an extraordinary, addictive tool which are deleting our short-term memory, destroying our language, and manipulating our minds. On the good side, we all know the stories. It's extremely powerful to, if depending on what AI format it is you're using, and the one with generative AI is less likely to do that, but another version is more likely to do this. For example, aggregate huge amounts of data from an fMRI scan and find issues way ahead of experts. It's able to do things from a medical and human point of view, which is extraordinary. This is a hammer which you can either use to put a nail in the wall and hang up a beautiful painting, or you can hammer people in the heads. But it's probably the most powerful hammer we ever had, which, when I talk to experts around the world, including the founders and co-founders of various AI technologies, they all are in agreement today that this is much bigger than the nuclear bomb. So that's what we're sitting with right now. It is so seductive. It is so admirable. It is so easy to use. And we're playing with our future and next generations. So I am extraordinarily concerned about the future and what it will bring to the table. Because I don't think people have really thought about how this now is estimated within the next 3 years to generate 60% of all content on the internet. 60% will 3 years from now be generated by AI, which basically means that we've lost control of a narrative which we want created, right?
Martin, you're in a great position to do something about this. Are you leading some type of forum or council that helps to address the good and the bad that is going to come from this?
Well, about a year ago, I founded something called Engineering Our Dreams. It's the largest extended reality experiment in the world. It's a $22 million project. It's supported by Stanford, Harvard, and MIT. We have 22 of the most prominent experts in the world, everything from the founder of augmented reality, virtual reality, various of the Siri, Alexa services. And then we have more than 20 of the leading brands in the world involved in the project. The design around this project is really to experiment about the future. It's basically to say, if we were really taking the most creative minds in the world and developing applications which could take this to the extreme, how would the future then look like? And then we're saying, this is how brands are going to evolve. What is the picket fence going to be of ethical code, which means that we're not going to stumble, brands are not going to be self-destructive, and consumers are not going to be destroyed. So this project is up and running. We're using Vision Pro, Apple's new glasses, by February 1st, 2024. We'll have more than 1,000 people moving into this extended reality for half a year. So it's super interesting. And the outcome of this is really to set a new global standard of ethical codes. I hope someone else will do it before us. I have my doubts, to be honest, because it's very clear right now that very few people actually are doing anything. A lot of people are talking about it, but very little action is associated with it. So I hope this can contribute to getting things on the right track. Who knows? But at least we're trying.
This is fascinating. There's so much that you've covered here that is just so. Again, my mind is running around in circles trying to grasp this all, and I'm sure the audience out there is going to appreciate this immensely. But before we end, I'd love to do a rapid fire question round with you.
Cool.
So, if Martin were a brand, what brand would you be?
I would definitely be a Lego.
Wow. And if you could meet 3 people for dinner, living or otherwise, who would they be and why?
I would like to meet Obama. I never met him. I would like to spend some more time with Steve Jobs. I have met him. I sat in meetings with him once, and I've seen him speak once. And I probably would like to meet Winston Churchill, because he's probably one of the most articulated speakers and poets of our time. Oh, there's so many people I would like to meet. But these are 3 people I thought would be interesting to meet.
Is there a book that has helped you, shape some of your thoughts, or a book that you want to recommend to the audience out there that is a must-read on Martin's list? Besides, of course, The Ministry of Common Sense, which I'm going to recommend here.
I'm just so kind. No. And the reason why is I haven't read a business book ever in my life. And the reason why is because I'm so afraid of stealing ideas and thoughts, or even worse, read that and say, gee, why didn't I come up with that idea? So I actually do not read books at all. I only write them.
Kids don't listen to that?
No, I know, it's horrible. Yeah. My views are a bit screwed when it comes to these type of topics.
Why don't you have a mobile phone?
Well, it's one of those topics. There's 3 reasons why I've come to realize why I don't have a phone, because it was not as articulated as it is today when I'm saying it. I skipped my phone 6 years ago. And by phone, I mean any phone.
Anything.
Yeah. The first thing I realized is when you are standing in a bar and you're meeting someone and the person is late, the first thing you do is to grab your phone and do anything with the phone so you don't look like a complete loser, right?
Right.
The second thing is you don't see things anymore. Everything you see is through a lens. The first step of your baby. That amazing view, that memory, all of it is through a lens. But the third thing is the worst thing. We never get bored anymore. And boredom is the foundation for creativity. Is that pause in life where we are able to connect dots in a new way and be creative. And we're never creative anymore. So when I skipped the phone, I did not know. I thought it was kind of for a year as a test to myself. And I became kind of addicted not to have a phone, which sounds unusual for most, I could imagine. I will never get a phone again. If I can, because the world is getting tougher and tougher to live in and survive in without a phone. But I have to say, for anyone who is listening and are intrigued by that, go for it. Don't do what I'm doing though. But go for it for half a day on Sundays.
Yeah.
Or a whole weekend. And do it with your children. Make sure that you stimulate your mind and your brain. We only have one of it. One brain. And if we are going to compete against the GDPs of the world, the generative AI, I think the only thing we can compete with is two factors. One is empathy, which, by the way, is a reason why we as a species are around today. Remember, no other species have empathy. That's the reason why we thousands and thousands of years ago were able to predict what a polar bear would do when it would attack us. That's the reason why our brain evolved the way we do. We literally have an area where empathy is created. And that area literally is disappearing now. Through brain scans, we can see this. And recent studies showing 2 universities in the United States monitoring this over about 2 decades, seeing a drop of 61% of empathy. You can build and maintain empathy by not having a phone around you all the time, because you're forced to interact with your surroundings. And the second thing is that you'll get bored. And that means you'll have to get used to yourself in your own company, which is really, really difficult. Sounds easy, it's not. Which will make you become creative. And that's the other factor, which ChatGPT may be creative, but not in an empathic way. And that's the point of differentiation between humans and AI for now.
I can't think of a better closing than that one. Thank you so much, Martin.
Thank you.
What an amazing guest here today. Truly humbled, and I feel that empathy, and it's just been such a pleasure. Thank you, Martin.
You're very kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you.